Hey everyone, me Kevin here with a deep dive on the new stimulus package and the 10 ways that you can save money with this next package. The next package is called the HEROES Act, and I'm going to dive deep on specifics like child support and stimulus checks. And what about the $500 cap on unemployment? What does that mean? What about business tax credits and new write-offs for businesses and for other people, including self-employed folks? There are some cool things in here on how you could save money. Now, this is a Republican proposal in the Senate. This is not a high-flying, here's $2,000 per month, like, yay, this sounds good, but it's probably not gonna happen proposal. This is actually kind of the opposite. This bill that we're about to review kind of is like a floor. That is, we really only expect the benefits in this bill to get better as Democrats negotiate this support up. Now, don't get me wrong, I would love for us all to get $2,000 per month, recurring and retroactive. But right now, that's not happening. Instead, let's talk about what's likely to happen, and that's this bill or potentially a better version of this. Let's get started with this right away. Quick note, the pre-sale price for the YouTube course, the How to Make Money from Home Using Your Camera or Your Phone, goes up on July 31st. That's in like 2.5 days. So lock in your low pricing now so you can learn how to make money from home. And you can also watch a video linked in the description down below on how much money YouTube paid me in May. And I always just like to be transparent with my audience, so that's why I'm saying that. All right, let's get into this. First, let me tell you what was not mentioned to save you some time on those items. And if you appreciate me saving you time and putting these things together for you, please consider subscribing and sharing. All right, so far we have seen no mention of the eviction ban, though we do expect the eviction ban extension to make it into this bill. We've also seen no mention of hazard pay, and we don't expect to see mention of that, which is sad and unfortunate. The same goes for essential workers, the same goes for EIDL grants, the same goes for SNAP program funding, which is food stamps, and the same goes for the Postal Service. None of those items were mentioned, and we don't expect any of those to get incorporated, with the exception of the eviction ban extension. We do expect that to get incorporated. Now, instead, this is what we have so far. Number one, stimulus checks. $1,200 stimulus checks per person have been confirmed with the same income thresholds as last time. Whether or not you qualify is dependent on your 2019 tax return. If you did not yet file your 2019 tax return, your check amount will be based off your 2018 tax return. And if you made less money in 2020 than you did in 2019, that is, maybe you'll qualify this year, but you didn't last year, you'll be able to claim that money when you file your taxes next year. This means that individuals can get up to $1,200 and married couples can get up to $2,400. There is no mention of providing stimulus checks to family members married to those with ITIN numbers. So at this point, this looks like it's not in the package. However, all dependents will receive $500 checks as a one-time benefit if the main filers qualify. So if the parent qualifies, the dependent will get $500. There is no retroactive check. So even if you get $500 this time, it doesn't mean you're eligible for the $500 that was authorized last time for dependents because maybe you were over 17 years old. Anyway, $1,200, $500 going forward. No age restriction on that $500. If someone is behind on child support, they will not be eligible for the check. Instead, that check will get rerouted to the designated beneficiary where that child support is owed. For those in prisons will not be eligible for stimulus money. Those in prisons for all of 2020 will also not be able to claim their stimulus check money on their taxes next year. If someone died prior to January 1st, 2020, they will not be eligible for a stimulus check. This means if somebody passes away or passed away before January 1st, 2020, and then the family gets the check, the family has to return it. However, and this is not clear, they don't say what happens if somebody passed away in 2020 and they got a check. That was not addressed, so maybe that means you can keep it. The family can keep it. All dependents, regardless of age, will receive the $500. No retroactive checks, we mentioned that. There is no limit in this text on how many dependents you can have. If you are on Social Security, railroad retirement benefits, or you are a recipient from the VA, the Treasury Department will work directly with those departments to authorize your $1,200 checks, just like last time. So to clarify, if you are eligible for stimulus checks and you're a couple with, let's say, 2 dependents of any age, you should receive $3,400. That's $2,400 for the couple plus $500 per child, just as an example. Now let's talk student loans. Those of you with federal student loans, you will be given two options. One, a 10-year mortgage-style repayment plan. I'm assuming that means they just amortize it fully over 10 years, so you make a payment and it's fully paid off after 10 years. Number two, this is the second option, an income-based repayment plan, something that's basically based on how much money you make. If you make no money, you don't pay at all. Otherwise, if you're making money, you pay 10% of whatever your income is over $19,140. This is the second option. If you make less than $19,140, you pay zero. Anything above $19,140, which scales up with the poverty rate, 150% of the poverty rate, you will pay 10% on your student loans. If you make these payments for 20 years on a federal student loan, and these are undergraduate loans, the loan will be forgiven after those 20 years. If these are graduate loans and they are federal loans, your debt will be forgiven after 25 years of these payments, scaled again at 10% of your discretionary income, which discretionary income is everything above that $19,140 figure. So if you make $1,000 more than that, you would pay $100 in student loan payments. For unemployment, and keep this in mind, by the way, this entire package is being called a starting place by Mitch McConnell. He used that phrase, quote, starting place. Now, we do have more information on the unemployment plan. Yes, right now, it looks like the boost is being reduced from $600 to $200 per week for everybody receiving unemployment pay. Now, that will continue through the end of September. And the way this text is written is that they don't want there to be any kind of gap. So because this bill might not get fully passed for a couple weeks, it's possible that you might not get an unemployment check for a couple weeks, including the Fed boost, in which case it suggests that you would be eligible for a retroactive pay for those 2 weeks, because they want this $200 per week to continue from July 31st through the end of September. However, lawmakers have now also clarified that the Fed is going to contribute up to a max of $500 per week, starting in October. Here's how this would work. Let's say you make $52,000 per year. That means you make $1,000 per week. You can get paid up to 70% of that on unemployment. If your state pays you $200 per week, then the Fed would give you the extra $500. So you're now making $700 on unemployment, which is 70% of your prior pay. So that change actually works out better for you if you're still unemployed in October, because rather than getting $200 from your state and $200 from the Fed, which is $400 total, you would get $200 from your state and $500 from the Fed, which is $700 in that specific example I just gave you. However, if you go to a state like California, where you might make $450 in unemployment pay on state pay, the Fed would only give you an extra $250 to bring you up to that $700 max. That's 70% of what you were making before. Now, yeah, if you were making more money, and because California's pay is higher, the Fed could contribute you more money, so that technically the amount of your pay on unemployment does scale upwards a little bit more. Hopefully those two examples help you, and just for giggles, I'm going to do one more example here. Let's say you only made $26,000 per year. That works out to $500 per week, which is about $12.50 per hour, working 40 hours per week. In this example, you would only be eligible for about $350 in payments. I got that figure by taking $500 per week, your income before being on unemployment, minus 30%, so that I'm left with 70%, which is $350 in total payments. In this case, if California says, yo, we got you, we'll pay you the whole $350, the Fed boost will give you nothing starting in October. So you'd actually prefer the $200 flat boost per week in August and September because it's gonna go away in October. Now, you can kind of take this information and keep doing examples with this. One very last one. Let's say you had $500 per week in income, right? That same scenario, but you were in the state of Florida and they gave you $275. the Fed will give you the extra $75 to get you to $350. Okay, that's how the unemployment payment system would scale. Then, if states can't get their act together and figure out how to do all this scaling crap by October 5th, the states can request a waiver and just continue the flat boost of $200 from the Fed without considering how much people were making beforehand. All right, let's move on now to school funding and some other topics, including special tax credits that seem very interesting for a lot of different people. First, on school funding, it looks like we've got $70 billion in here for K through 12, $30 billion for colleges. This is about the same as what Democrats were offered or had offered in the HEROES Act. Some of this will be released to schools that are doing virtual learning, and the rest will be released when schools reopen because it's more expensive to operate a school when it is open. You've got buses, cafeterias, and so on. Number 5, an employee retention credit. An employee retention credit is being extended from the CARES Act from 50% of wages to 65% of wages. And instead of up to $10,000 per year, which is kind of like an employer being able to put $5,000 in their pocket, now they can put $6,500 in their pocket. Well, instead of being able to put $6,500 in their pocket once, they can do that up to on $30,000 of wages, which works out to around $19,500 in credits that an employer could get through the new employee retention credit, as long as the employer had a 25% decline in revenue. This is also a softened requirement from previously, and this applies to companies with up to 100 employees. Employers are also now eligible to use this with the PPP and the employee retention credit together, but there are some overlap limitations. Number 6, the work opportunity tax credit. The work opportunity tax credit is also now expanded to include rehiring people who were on unemployment. So the government actually wants to get people off unemployment so badly, they're now giving employers money. It seems like they're always giving employers money. That's like the theme here. They're now giving employers money so that if an employer gets somebody off unemployment and gets them working, the employer can take a tax credit of up to 50% of the first $10,000 in the first year of qualified wages. Basically, in English, a boss, like an employee, could get $5,000 for taking somebody off unemployment and hiring them. The employee doesn't get anything, but as usual, the business gets something. That just seems to be classic in America. People who own assets, stocks, and real estate win. This is why I always say you got to get your 2 free stocks with Webull so you too can get the bug and start investing. You deposit $100 and then Webull gives you 2 free stocks. The link's down below right next to the link to get amazing life insurance, which you can sign up for in as little as 5 minutes. Apple Pay, Android Pay for it. At least check what the price is. It's pretty cool. Number 7, refundable tax credit, including something for self-employed people. Okay, so here's how this works. There is now a refundable tax credit that is in this proposal. Remember, this still has to get passed by the House, the Senate, and signed into law by the president. If this credit passes, there will be a refundable tax credit that if you are self-employed or you are a business and you bought personal protective equipment like masks or gloves or sanitizer or whatever, you will be able to get a refundable tax credit of up to 50% of what you spent with a cap of $1,000 for each employee, up to 500 employees, and then it scales down. Okay, so in English, if you spent $1,000 between, let's say, March and the end of July on masks and hand sanitizers or, I don't know, filtration equipment or whatever, you could request a refundable tax credit of 50% of that, which means if you spent $2,000, you could get $1,000. If you are an employee, you could get $1,000. If you have a small business with 2 employees, you could get up to $2,000, right? It's $1,000 per employee. It scales down only once you have 100 employees. Now, it's not 100% clear how this would work, given that some of those things might be a tax write-off anyway. So refundable tax credit, does that stack with writing off? Probably, because what other difference would it make, right? I think they're trying to basically cover the cost for you, because if you write it off, then it only costs you, maybe 60%, and then you get a refundable tax credit of 50% on top of that anyway, so you come out ahead. I think that's what they're trying to do here. We'll want to keep an eye on this, because this also shows this as a potentially quarterly cap. which for the time frame they gave gives you about 3 quarters that you could take advantage of this with. So if you have a side hustle or a small business and you bought gloves, masks, air filtration stuff, sanitizers, any kind of this PPE, you would be able to probably claim this refundable tax credit for 3 quarters, which 3 quarters at $1,000 is up to getting $3,000 in total per employee as a refundable tax credit. All right. This does also include self-employed people. So like if you're an Uber driver, if you're a realtor and you spend money on sanitizer and all this stuff, start collecting those receipts. All right. Oh, this is long. Number 8, a new tax credit now allows Airbnb, Uber, Lyft, real estate brokerages, or other companies that basically employ independent contractors, like 1099 workers, right? Because they're technically not employees. It allows those companies to provide benefits to the 1099 workers by giving them things like PPE or money to improve their cars or their cleanliness or giving them cleaning supplies or whatever. These companies can now do that without risking the fact that you are a 1099 classified worker. These companies are always hesitant to give out benefits because then they think the IRS is gonna come in and say, ha, so those are employees, and then screw the company. So this is a good way for businesses to give back to the people who work for them as 1099 contractors. But again, notice the theme here. It's always businesses getting the biggest bailouts. That's just the consistent theme. Number 9, Medicare premiums will not go up this year. Number 10, a 100% deduction on business meals for all of 2020. Again, more tax breaks for people with businesses. All business meals for 2020 will now be deductible, and it doesn't exactly define what would qualify as a business meal. I'm sure they're hanging that off what currently qualifies as a business meal or used to qualify as a business meal. But anyway, usually what you do is you go out and talk to your personal CPA about this, not just any CPA, somebody who knows your tax situation. Usually people write on the back of their receipt, oh, met with so-and-so to discuss this about business. They take a picture of it, and there you go, it's in the file. Okay, further, this bill also has a plan to increase funding for Social Security and the Medicare trust funds, but we don't have the details of that yet because they're still working out those plans as well. We will also see looser restrictions for state and local governments to be able to spend money that has already been allocated to them. They'll be able to use or allocate a higher percentage of money they got from the CARES Act to certain expenses that they have. There were other restrictions on that, but that regards states and not so important for us, I don't think. This is what we have for now. Remember that this is a starting point. More information will come out on this and evolve over the next few days. Let's see how this evolves. If you like my information and the in-depth content that I can bring you, that's more than just what the headlines or like a generic Fox News or CNN article says. I actually go into the bills and I really try my hardest to get you as much detailed information as possible and unique perspective. Please consider giving the channel a subscribe. We had over 3,000 of you subscribe in just about the last 24 hours. I really, really appreciate that. I'm so grateful for all of you. And folks, thank you so much. We will see you soon.